Do you want to make your own podcast? Well, let me tell you, Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. Yes, for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have been able to create the Young Dad podcast as well as another podcast called Ball Boy Talk. It has been incredible for us, and it's given us this platform where we're able to reach so many people worldwide on a dozen different streaming platforms for free. It's easy, it's simple. I highly recommend you give it a try if you want to make your own podcast. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. Today on the show, we welcome Daniel Simone and host of the Build podcast, and we're about to put some work in today. Daniel's going to tell us his story, and we're going to dive deep into how Daniel helps fellow dads and people like you and I reach a higher level of self through fitness and daily blueprinting right now. Ball Boy Media presents the Young Dad Podcast with your hosts, the Young Brothers, Jay and Aaron. Pull up a chair, grab a juice box, grab a snack, and talk with us for a little while. Enjoy the show. Welcome into the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Unfortunately, not with us today is Aaron. But however, joining us from Australia is Daniel, host of the Build Podcast. Daniel, how the heck are you tonight?
Jay, I'm awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Super pumped to be on today.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome here. We are so happy to have you on. We're going to go ahead and kick it off. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, about your background, and just about you as a person.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I'm from Sydney, Australia. I know you're over in America, so that's sort of the big sort of thing. So, over in Sydney, Australia, and, I like to always say first things first, I'm a father and a husband. That's really the two things, right in there in the Instagram bio, it says father and husband, and that's sort of really the who I am. But, just doubling back before that, growing up, my father and family's always been in the construction industry. I'm one of four boys, so I've got three younger brothers. So I'm the oldest of four, and we all grew up with my dad in a WOG Italian household, where we ate pasta. I think it was 19 times a week. That's sort of how we grew up, right? And, my dad always went out working, providing for the family. And, looking at him doing that, that's sort of, what I wanted to be able to do is follow my dad's footsteps. And I did that when we left school. Actually, I followed in my mum's footsteps for the first 3 months of leaving school, and she was a hairdresser. So it was, well, what happened was I'm not sure how it sort of works in America, but in Australia, we can leave school in year 10. Well, we could do that, which I'm not sure what that reflects over with you guys, but we could leave. How
old were you?
I would have been 16.
Okay, yeah, so that's sophomore year, so 10th grade, yep.
Yeah, so we're allowed to leave school at that point. It's not like that anymore now. It's changed, but we're allowed to leave school. So, prior going to the next year, which is probably seniors for you, year 11 for us,
Mhm.
I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to go back to school. So had a job with a friend of mine who was a hairdresser. Mum was a hairdresser. So I did hairdressing for about, 4 or 5 months. And I'm like, this is not for me. And then after that, I went into my family business in construction with my dad. And yeah, so that's sort of like, that side of things, sort of, a little bit about who I am. And
Thanks.
yeah, and
So
then all my brothers came into that as well too. So that's sort of backstory to there.
very cool. So did all your brothers also try out hairdressing for a little bit? Try to be like
No, they
mom?
didn't. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. Actually, one story which it's funny with my dad, like, obviously, like, we got in trouble as kids, and
Of
we
course.
would, we'd get a little light smack on the bum. Sometimes it'd be a little bit harder than lighter and whatnot. But there was one time when I was doing hairdressing, and I remember I came back, and I'm a wog, I'm Italian, so if you listen to this, I've got short black hair. But at the time, I had a little bit of a longer hair, and I thought it would be a great idea to dye my hair blonde.
Oh
So
no.
I dyed my hair blonde, but it's not over. What I also thought would be a good idea on top of that, after doing that, I thought, why not do a blue black mohawk?
Oh.
Yeah. So I came home
Whoa.
with that, and it's when my father he looked at me and he didn't say a single word.
You
He
didn't
didn't
need to.
do
You didn't
anything.
need to.
And just the sheer disappointment in his face. Like, I could feel it. He was like, what have, like, he just didn't say a word. I could sense it. I could feel it. He just
I don't think he
literally
had anything to
looked at me.
say. He didn't know what to
He
say. He
looked
was
at the floor, turned around, and just walked away. And I was like, oh, that's actually worse than getting into trouble, to be honest. So
yes. No,
that's my
honestly.
the hairdressing story. So that haircut didn't stay around for very long, and then a couple of months later, I joined my father in the family business, and yes, my
Okay.
brothers also joined the business as well too. So
Very
yeah,
cool. So have any of those skills stayed with you from hairdressing? Cutting or dyeing or anything for your kids or for your wife or
no,
anything?
no, not really, not really. I didn't really do too much. I was well, some of the older ladies definitely liked to have their hair washed from me, because back then we used to provide a light massage when conditioning. So
Oh
they
yeah.
said, you've got nice, strong hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, but other than that, maybe those massage schools have been
They
brought
were
over, but
there was a innuendo in that that they were trying to tell you there. So
potentially. And, I was a little bit inexperienced in washing hair. So a couple of times, let's say a few of them got a little bit more wet down the back than they were probably intending to while
oh
getting
they
their hair
didn't they
washed.
didn't mind. They were just happy you were washing their hair. They were just
So yeah,
happy.
that's right.
Nope, I've been there. So I had the same similar thing happen when I was about that age. I think I was a sophomore and I decided to shave my head. I got super low cut, right? Just before I grew my hair out really, really long back then. But I got to shave super short on the sides, but I kept the top, I kept the middle. I had a mohawk.
Uh huh.
Um, but I dyed mine purple. I had a purple mohawk for a few weeks there, and pretty sure my dad had the same reaction. So
It hits pretty hard. Like, I was actually, after he'd finished, I was like, "Can you come back and, like, hit me or something?" Or, like, because I was
right,
like, do something. So
do
yeah,
something, anything.
do something.
Do you have any pictures of that still? Do you have any pictures in the archives?
Never even thought about it, to be honest. I mean, probably not. This would have. I probably had a phone back then. Would have been like one of those Nokia like
Okay.
62. Probably wouldn't have even had a camera on it, to be
Well,
honest.
if you
So
end up finding any picture from that time, ask your mom,
you
ask
know
your
what?
dad if there's
Now
any
I'm actually
pictures or
curious.
anything.
Actually, I might have to go hit my mum up and see
Ask her.
if we do have any photos of that.
I
So there
guarantee
you
she
go.
took some because she just wanted to remember it to laugh at you later and to get your dad's reaction. Like, I guarantee she has some waiting and she's primed for that.
I'd have to see if I can find that actually.
Or your
Yeah.
brothers probably have some that they know. Guarantee someone has to.
Yes, I'll look
Um,
into it.
but if you end up posting yours, If you post yours on your Instagram, I'll post mine on ours of my
All
my
right, there you
mohawk.
go.
I
Ooh,
was straight.
now I want to see it.
I
Actually, now
was
I'm extremely curious myself.
I was thugging. All right, so you went from hairdressing to construction.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your time in construction.
So, that was yeah, my father is a very well respected man, following in his footsteps and learning that, my father's values was all around, your word is your bond. Your name means everything. It's all about reputation, all about a handshake, all about looking people in the eye and respect. So, that, following my father's footsteps and learning those values, which, you know, have really instilled in me today, which has set the foundation for who I am as a person. So, yes, being in the construction industry, but just being under my dad, learning in the construction industry, I didn't have it easy at all. I wasn't like, oh, it's the boss's son sort of scenario. So I did have to start at the bottom. I did have to do all the hard yards and learn my trade and learn every aspect of the business and the trade, and I did have to go through that. Sometimes I felt like I had it a bit harder because I was the boss's son, and my dad
Yeah.
take it easy on me as well. And I'll give you a story that I remember I would have probably been 2 or 3 years into it, and we make, like, as a carpenter, we pitch the roof and put all the roof together. And I remember I'd made a mistake. I read the plan the wrong way around and put this roof together back to front, sort of thing. And, most of the time when someone made a mistake, they would go during work hours with help and actually fix it up. But not
Okay.
me. I had to actually go after hours by myself back
Oh,
to the job.
no.
It started getting dark. It wasn't in the best area. So after it started getting dark, I was getting thrown rocks at by kids. This is an area where we had windows being smashed and whatnot.
Oh
So I was there
no.
probably about 3 or 4 hours in my own time while it was dark, fixing up this mistake. But it's safe to say that I never made that mistake again. But, I never really got it. Like, I had a very easy life. My parents gave me a lot as a kid, but in that respect, in the work, I never had a shortcuts taken. My father made sure that I did everything. I learned every aspect of that, and I'm thankful and grateful for that experience. Learning the ropes from him, so that was great.
Most definitely. No, that works out. So then you went from construction. You learned, you learned all the ropes in construction, not mastered your trade, but became a tradesman,
Yep,
carpenter, figured
correct.
all of it out, um, kept going in the family business. Where do you fall among like your brothers? Are you the oldest
I'm the eldest,
or
correct? The eldest. Yep. So I got three
okay?
younger brothers.
Okay. So everyone kind of followed along in dad's footsteps, and then you made a shift into health, fitness, and mindset.
Yep.
So you went from blue collar tradesman where that stuff is pretty much taboo. Like this is your health, this is your fitness,
Yep.
this is your mindset. What what happened that made you go from one into the next?
Yeah, and the thing is, right now, like, I think it's a journey. So I think going back, being in the gym was something that I'd always liked to do. Being around, I think I started training when I was probably around about 18. It was just, you see a friend go to the gym and then you sort of go. So I'd always sort of been in and around the gym sort of space. But it wasn't until I got, well, you probably can call it technically diagnosed having depression by a couple of doctors. It wasn't really then until I started to find that that's where my passion lied, because that's what helped me get through some difficult times. I'm sure we'll double back and dig a little bit deeper into that. But it was when I went through that scenario and what really helped me through that, then I realized that if something like that could help me, then I have the tools and the capability to be able to help someone past a particular problem or something where they're in. So that journey began of me exploring that sort of on the side, little bits, and still in the industry, still building homes and still working with my dad in that. But this was just sort of, it started off as in, I love this space. I want to help people do what I did. And then it just sort of progressed from there. So that's sort of how I got into it, just at a very top level. But I'm sure we can double back and go into some of those stories. And that's sort of just progressed from there because I realized the power of what, changing your habits, the power of exercise, the power of developing a strong mindset, the power of nutrition, all those combined, what it can actually do to help and change a person. That's what I really realized was powerful. And that's what, I love doing right now.
Okay. So what was that first step you took? That first step that got you into it from construction. That first step you took, you're like, wow, this is life changing. What was it?
It was, it wasn't necessarily like it happened straight away. It was a progression. It was
Okay.
definitely a progression. So really to answer that
Take us through
question,
take us through that progression. Take us through
yeah,
that
and I
progression.
think,
Like
I
what did
probably
that
then
look like?
have to go I probably would have to go a little bit deeper into that story about how I got sort of diagnosed with depression. I think that's probably, you know, to hold on that point a little bit, right? Which
Yeah,
will
let's
lead
hit
into
it. Go
that.
ahead and go into that because that's super important.
And that's a
It's
big part
crazy.
of, you're
A
right.
ton of our listenership, we have
Mm.
like 60, 70% men.
Yeah,
And you see how huge it is celebrated in sports when a professional athlete, comes out and talks about their
definitely.
diagnosis and
Yep.
talks about these things. Like the Seattle Mariners today, baseball team, they posted these shirts that they're, selling now that are promoting the mental health and mental
Uh-huh.
awareness for people of baseball fans. There's three baseballs on a shirt, but one's like a whole baseball, one's cracked, and then one's fully broken,
Yeah, okay.
just to kind of symbolize these things. So it's huge. It's celebrated when an athlete or sports team, takes that stance, especially when you see men as
Yeah,
the face of it. Because normally it's women. Across
definitely.
social media, you see more women
Hmm.
pushing it. It's more common, but you don't see men pushing it as much. So yeah, I think it's super important that we dive into that story because I feel that's that's going to hit home with a lot of people because so many men struggle with it. It's the number
Definitely.
one thing. There's a reason why here in America, the suicide rate is 4 to 1, men to
Mm.
women. I'm
Yep.
not sure what it is in Australia. I'm pretty sure it's very
It's
similar.
definitely high, but the construction industry itself is the highest in Australia. So
Okay.
within the men, definitely.
All
So I
right.
think that journey for myself, it began with anxiety. I was suffering a lot of panic attacks and anxiety attacks where, I was in networking groups. Actually, I used to have them in America. It was founded in America, BNI. I was in networking groups and I'd be out in public and I'd have all these anxious feelings like the walls were closing in on me, like people were watching me, like I'd had my back to a wall if I was sitting down at a table, but I'd still be looking over my shoulder, feeling like someone was watching me. I'd have to go to the car and I'd be like hyperventilating, like short of breath. And, I'd call my mum. My mum would help me through this scenario. My mum's had her own journey and her own experiences throughout her own journey as well too, but she was very good. She helped me. So, I had those panic attacks and it happened when I was in the gym. I'd be in the gym in the morning. The gym would be a big, massive factory warehouse and you shouldn't be feeling claustrophobic in the size of this gym, but I was
No.
feeling claustrophobic and I was feeling like short of breath. And,
Hmm.
I'd been in the gym. I normally go in the morning. So I'd be in the gym like early in the morning and I'd be like, why are these walls closing in on me? Who's watching me? Like I couldn't breathe. So I'd have to actually like leave the gym. I'd go home. I'd go, like we all know where the safest place in the world is inside the bed under the covers, right? So that's where I went. I went
Yeah.
inside the back into the bed, put the covers over my head and, saying to my wife, you know, like this is it. Like, I just want to stay here and whatnot. And then, that kept going on, and I said to my wife, I'm going to go, see a doctor and have a chat, right? So I told my
Okay.
mum, I said, Mum, I'm going to go see a doctor and have a chat. Anyways, went to see the first doctor, and he pretty much asked me a bunch of questions. He gave me a bit of a form to fill out. I was there for about 10 to 15 minutes, and he pretty much said to me, "Yep, you got depression. The only way for you to sort of get through this is medication. Here's a prescription, pretty much on your way." And I was like,
Hmm.
wait a minute. Like, what? Like, so I thought then at that point, I was like, okay, so I'm going to be one of these people who's depressed and on medication. Like, no,
That's
no,
not gonna
that's
work. That was
that's not
for me personally. Exactly. For me personally, that was
yeah,
one of the things that really scared me. Um, growing up, I went to a bunch of different therapists and counselors and whatnot. Growing up in my teenage years, my 20s and whatnot, and I was always so afraid of being. I already knew I had the diagnosis, but I was so afraid of going to like an actual psychologist to where they could give me pills or whatnot
yeah,
that I was like, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. Um, until I finally did. I went to a psychologist, but then he was such a good psychologist. He broke down all my diagnoses into their main problem. It wasn't just a blanket thing like
yeah,
happened in your instance by chance. It happens a lot here too, where it's just, oh, you have this. Here's this bottle of pills. Be on your merry way.
yeah,
Um, he broke down my diagnosis. He broke it down to a point where it's like, okay, it comes down to this. This is what I'm going to recommend. I know you're afraid of it, so we're just going to do a small dosage that I think
uh-huh,
will help. I took that pretty strong for a few years. Um, and then it got to the point where it's just like I wasn't taking it as much because I didn't need it as much
yep,
to where those chemicals rebalanced out in my brain.
yep,
Um, so I think it's important that you find the right person. If you have questions, like you did in this instance,
hmm
that you dig deeper, you find a little bit more. So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. And then so I left that, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, this guy seemed a bit young. I'm like, I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna go get a second opinion. So when I got a second opinion, long story short, the exact same thing happened. Fill out a form, ask you some questions. Yep, you got depression. Here's a prescription. So now I'm sitting here with two prescriptions. So I ring my mum. I'm like, I'm upset. I'm a bit lost as well. I'm like, Mum, here's the scenario. And Mum's like, you don't have depression. She's like, go see my doctor. I'm like, you know what? What the heck? What have I got to lose? So I went to go see him, and his story was totally different. He's like, you don't have depression. He goes, you're just going through a bit of a rough patch right now. He's like, focus on this, and a totally different story. And here I am. I left that doctor, and I'm like, wow, like I now have a choice to make which story I want to attach myself to. And that's what I was sitting there contemplating. I'm like, there's two stories. And this goes through everyone in life as well too. We all have a story that we've chosen. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I could have very easily chose the first two doctor stories, grabbed that prescription and went down that road, feeling sorry for myself, doing everything that road would have led me down. I very easily could have done that. And I was sitting there and I went to KFC, across the road from the. Of course, why not? Go get some greasy
Wow,
chicken, right?
might
So
as well.
yeah,
Can't feel any
so
worse,
I was
right?
sitting there with this decision to make, like and that's how I looked at it. For me personally, at that point, I looked at it as in I had a decision to make, as in which story I wanted to attach myself with.
Okay.
And my mum knew where the doctors was. I didn't. She just happened to rock up. Obviously, she's probably driving around looking for me. I wasn't hiding or anything, but she just happened to rock up. And I chose the story of the last doctor, and I chose his story, and I chose not to take any medication, and I threw those prescriptions away, and I chose to go at it my own route. That was definitely a hard route to go down, and my mum had her own experiences. So from there, it led
Mhm.
me down that spiritual healing. So going down a very spiritual journey, it led me down personal development through meditation, digging deeper through my nutrition. I was smoking at the time, so I eventually quit smoking, lost 10 kilos. And that's where all that health, fitness, and nutrition and mindset started to
Okay.
really come into play. Was it easy? Heck no. Sorry, I've been wanting to swear so much, but I'm not sure if there's a swearing environment or not.
You can if you want. It's alright. It's alright.
I think we
But
paused.
you're cutting in and out just a little bit. You're cutting in and out just a little bit.
I think our
Um,
connection
but
is
yeah, I
dropping
think
out a little bit.
just to kind of fill this here while it's kind of catching you up,
Have you got me, Jay?
it's so important that it's these stories that you had. kind of define where you were at between things, and it's different for everyone. All right, right before we had those technical difficulties, we're back. We just had to take a quick water break, if you will. But Daniel, you were kind of saying that you had these different paths to take. You had these different options, and I think that's the scary part of healthcare is that it's so easy for doctors who might not be familiar with
Yes.
these mental illnesses where they just start handing out pills. And they're
Correct.
handing out pills, and let's just stay focused on men here, because I looked it up, and it's actually 75% of the suicides daily in Australia are men.
Yes.
That's a staggering
Very true.
number, and it's 2 to 3 times greater than that for teenage males, compared to teenage girls, which is also crazy. Um, but it's these stories that are being handed out, or these paths, if you will, that you were mentioning, that are being given to people in your country and in mine. It's like, here's this bottle of pills, you'll be fine. But it's like that stuff is so generic, and it
It is.
doesn't actually help because it's a generic option. And it's scary because a lot of people take these. A lot of people take these. I'm no expert,
They
I'm not a
do.
psychologist or anything, but
Mm.
um, it's a path that oftentimes does more damage than good,
Hmm.
just
And I think a lot
from
of
my
people,
experience. So
I think I was lucky at the time that I felt like I had support and other options, and when my mum was a huge part, and like I was saying before, she led me down that path. She connected me with spiritual healing, and I dug deeper into the personal development side. Hearing about these words, gratitude, and I was like, okay, well, great. What's gratitude? So understanding what that actually meant and how to practice that and digging deeper into meditation. So going down that whole journey, which is really my core fundamental blueprint, which I practice daily as we speak right now. And I help all of my clients do the exact same thing because I think right now we go through a daily removal process. We have to remove all that negative energy. We have to remove all that stuff, strip back those layers, get to the best version of ourselves, which is already within inside of us, but we need to have to find that person. So for me, at that time, I was blessed that I had my mum who was able to help me through that scenario, guide me down that path. And then I went back home and I literally got to work and it was freaking hard. It was hard as actually, that's what I was asking you before we had technical difficulties. I've been wanting to
oh
swear,
yeah,
but I've been holding
no,
myself back.
go ahead, whatever works for you, man, whatever works.
Yeah, no, awesome. So, it was
There's buttons we
definitely
can push for the listeners. There's buttons that we push ahead of time before we post that say it's explicit. There's a tiny little E by the title. Um, so, and this is an independent podcast, so we can say whatever we want, however we want. So, yeah, feel
love it.
free.
Good stuff. All right. So I don't have to hold myself back. So, and we went home and went back to work. And, my wife played a massive role in this. And, at the time, I know we haven't got into my wife and my kids, which we probably should get
No,
into in
and
a minute. But
I just want to say real quick,
yeah,
I love it that how much credit you're giving to these women in your life. The
yes.
credit you're giving to your mom, the credit you're giving to your wife, or you're about to give to your wife. I feel it
Hmm.
coming. But
Yeah.
last week on the show, I talked about just how awesome the impact of women are in our lives. You know,
Massive, massive,
Massive.
absolutely
Between
massive.
moms and female role models, grandmas, partners, significant others. Granted, I
Yeah.
don't have one of those right now, which I'm
Uh huh.
completely fine with.
Yeah.
But they play a massive role in our life. So I love that you're
100%.
bringing that up and you're hitting on that because it's so important to give that credit where credit is due, but especially to the women in our lives is huge. So, anyways,
Yeah.
continue. So you're on this
100%.
path. You go down this
Yeah.
path
So,
of spiritual healing, mental
mhm.
healing, these things with your mom's
Yeah.
support, kind of guiding you
Correct.
down that path away from
Yes.
these. You had like a triple fork in the road, but you
Yes.
chose the way of the most resistance, which is
Yes.
always in some instances the best path because the
Correct.
easy way out is just that. It's the easy way out and it leads down
Exactly
a
right.
vicious cycle. When you take the hard road, it leads you to a much better place. So you're down this path. You decided, all right, I'm going to commit, I'm going to go down this path. And then your mom's already bought in, she's on your side. Now, into what you're saying about your wife.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, my wife was there. She's seen everything, firsthand. She was the one who had to sort of rip the covers off me. And after that day, it didn't get any easier. I still had those feelings. I still, wanted to go back into the covers, and I still did go back into the covers. And, at the time we had two kids. So actually, just now, I'll touch on that actually now briefly. So right now, I've got three kids. My eldest daughter, Amelia, she's 7 years old. My son is 5, and my youngest daughter, Olivia, is a year and a half. So that's get to come home to those guys every single day is truly amazing. But at the time, I remember,
No,
you know,
all of our kids kind of line up in ages there.
yeah,
Between Aaron and I,
that's
his
good.
oldest is 6, my oldest is 5. Then we both have. He has a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I have a 2-year-old. Uh, so we're all the similar age group there. So no, that's awesome.
Lot of fun, a lot of joy, a lot of heartaches, a lot of but I'm sure we'll get into parenting in a minute. But
Oh,
you know,
I had the worst headache today. But anyways,
yeah. So back to that journey, I think my wife, seen me at my lowest points, crying, emotional, the ups and downs, and I tried to quit smoking, and having my kids there, really diving into that helped a lot as well too. But I think once I, and the sort of the start of the question was about how we got into health and fitness and doing that sort of stuff. The one thing for me, which what it was how I felt in the morning after I completed my workout. So that was the first sort of thing to me where I started to realize, how fundamental that workout was, that raising that heart rate, that elevating through those emotions and getting into that flow state. Because whenever I came back and was able to push through that workout, how I felt. And there was times where I'd miss my workout and I felt like absolutely rubbish. I felt like I didn't anchor my day. I never really, removed all that negative stuff and that changed that thought process. And that was the thing that I realized that, I say I had to fight. So, I fought to get out of bed because there was times where I didn't even want to get out of bed. The alarm goes off, but I was just able to fight in that moment where, the alarm goes off and that bitch voice is kicking in saying, you don't want to get out of bed. What are you getting out of bed for? But I had to fight. And I'm like, I had to fight for that workout. And that's what I call fighting. So I'd fight myself. I'd get out of bed and I'm fighting with my own self-talk. I'm fighting with everything. Go, get out of bed, put the shoes on, get changed, get out the door, go to the gym, get in the car. Everything along the way was a fight, was a literally. And when your mind is in that state, you're consuming so much energy just trying to fight yourself to force out something like the workout. And that's what it was for me. And that's where that new story, that foundation of my daily process and daily blueprint, was the foundation really set in stone there because I knew that I needed to get that done. So I fought so hard. And now that is what I do every single day. The foundation of the blueprint, the foundation of that removal process, all is ingrained within that workout. So that's the
that makes a
first
ton of
part of it.
sense.
Mm,
That makes a ton of sense because it's like you're almost not almost you're pushing yourself to do something hard and to put yourself through that, and then you get through that and it's like, man, the rest of the day is easy. You got all
definitely.
that you got everything out.
Yep.
You pushed your body, you pushed your mind, you pushed yourself to a state that was doing some hard shit. It's good for you
Yeah.
to do hard shit.
Definitely.
And that's something
100%.
hard, and it doesn't
Yep.
matter what level you're at either. You're everyone's hard is gonna look different. Like I can look at your Instagram page and I see you putting up freaking huge ass dumbbells. Like these things are freaking huge. Um,
Yeah.
and then for me, mine looks a ton different. Where you know, I'm on a machine. I'm doing pyramid sets. I start at a low weight, and I go to a medium weight, and then I go to a hard weight that's damn near impossible, and I go back down. And that's my hard. That's what's hard for me. So it
That
looks
you're
different for
so
everybody.
true. You're so true. A lot of people look at that and they're like, I can't do that. And, I run a lot as well too. People look at me and say, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, well, you don't have to do me. You got to do you, you
Yeah,
know?
like this is what works for me. Like what works for me isn't
Correct.
gonna work for you. Like when I go to the
Yeah,
gym, I bike. I get on a bike because the running's just not my
correct.
thing, but I can bike. I
What
can
I
easily
tell
do
people
10,
is,
15 miles.
yeah, nice. And that's and even though it's not the same thing, it's the fundamentals are still the same, right? We're still going there, we're doing our own hard, we're elevating our heart rate, we're removing all that negative energy, we're removing all that bad self-talk, right? We're elevating past that negativity into that flow state. So when you leave
Exactly.
that gym, you're just like, because you can't, those two states can't live together. You can't be vibing
Mm-mm.
at a high frequency when you're excited, when your blood's pumping. You can't be negative and depressed when you're in that sort of thing. They don't connect together, right?
No, it doesn't
So
connect at
sometimes when I'm
all.
having bad days, sometimes I may do a workout in the morning. I may do like 50 push-ups at lunchtime. I may then decide I'm going to go for an extra long walk. I may do some more push-ups. I may do some burpees just to change my state, just to change my frequency, just to get rid of that negativity. Or I
Hmm.
start to have some of that bad self-talk. Like even before jumping on this podcast, I jumped down on the floor and just did a quickly 30 or 40 push-ups just to get the state going, just to get the blood pumping, just to really elevate to that higher frequency so I could come on
No, I
here and
get
deliver the
that.
best stuff for you guys.
No, 100%. And I think that's key. Just going through your daily life, you get stuck in a routine. You
Mm,
get stuck in like the same thing, same energy, same states. A lot of it's negative. Like for me, before I can even sit down and do anything creative, I have to clean. That's
yeah.
just me, but I have to like clean something. My bedroom has to be
Mhm.
clean where I'm recording. I have to know my kitchen, my living room's all picked up. I have to know kids' rooms are clean, the bathroom's tidy. Like I just have to know these things so that I'm doing it
Yeah.
before. So then for me that creates, a way to get the blood pumping and to get ideas flowing because
Yep.
then I'm thinking about it as I'm
Yeah,
doing it.
definitely.
A little bit different than exercising, especially because today
Well,
with
it's
my
still a
children.
similar sort of
But
concept. You're still sort of
it's
doing,
exactly the same concept.
yeah, 100%.
And it's just to illustrate that it looks different for everybody. It can look
Yeah,
different. It's
that's right.
gonna look different. Like there's no way I'm
Mhm.
gonna look at your Instagram page and be like, yes, I'm gonna do that because I'm not. Absolutely not. Um, I'm not gonna step into a ring. I'm not gonna fight someone. I'm not gonna put up huge dumbbells and stuff like that. But I don't have to. I don't have to because
No,
I know it works for me. I know
definitely.
it works for my body. I know myself. Um,
100%. Yep. And to be honest, this is
so.
why like my clientele is, I work with a lot of dads, but I also work equally with a lot of mums and a lot of women as well. And as the story sort of progresses, I think, definitely connecting with the dads, the same way, the same story that I've gone through, where they all want to lose that weight, they want to be there for their kids, they want to, a lot of the times when you walk into that door, you still have that work energy about you, and you're not there for your kids. And one of the biggest
Mhm.
things about that, the core fundamentals, and I learned this from my mum, is as a parent we always talk about, we need to put our kids first. Okay. And I learnt this from my mum. So, like I said before, I'm one of four boys and my father. So, growing up, my mother had five men in the household. Okay.
Oh, your poor
And
mom. What an
yeah,
angel.
and she put all of us boys first, my dad, everyone first. And that led her down her own um, if you call it demise, but where she suffered her own journey similar to what I did, because
Mhm.
by her putting everybody else first, she neglected the most important person in her life, herself. And
Exactly.
now I've actually learned that, and I talk to my wife about this, and and this is huge for mums, and for me to recognize that a lot of the dads or the partners that are listening, they could potentially recognize this to help their wife, right? So for
Mhm.
me, I looked at it in a way as in, if I'm going to put my family first, my kids, my wife, the only way for me to put them first is to give them the best and highest version of myself. And the only way for me to give them the best and highest version of myself is to put myself first. And
Yes.
that's
No,
what I learned from my mum.
And I can 100% agree about that. We actually talked about that with Matt a couple weeks ago. When I like to call him by his last name because his last name's fun to say, Noonan.
Uh-huh.
But he's another one of you blokes from down there in Australia. But we talked about the same thing where you can't, as a father, you can't be the best father you want. You can't be that father you want to be
Hmm.
if you're not putting that effort into yourself first. If you're
Yes.
not putting that effort into your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your
So
spiritual
true.
health. You
Hmm.
can't. You absolutely cannot. And that's, something I'm actually, working on right now, but it's called the well balanced dad diet. And that's a huge part of it.
Hmm.
And so many dads just and so many parents and just people in general, not even just dads, but people just they feel like they don't know where to start.
Yep.
There's everyone
Totally.
has excuses and gonna say this or that or this or that to get out of it, to not do it.
For sure.
Um, and it's like, well, you're never gonna get there. And I honestly learned that looking back now and doing this podcast and whatnot, I realized I didn't do that when I was married. I
Mm.
didn't put myself first to improve myself enough
Hmm.
to be the best partner I could have been. Realize that
Yeah.
now. So now I'm doing it, backwards to where now I'm putting a lot more into my health. I put myself back into
Yeah.
school, got my bachelor's
Love it.
degree, going to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. I hate eating vegetables, so instead I got a greens powder to do
Yeah.
that. I'm doing
Love
these
it.
things and I'm just doing them for myself. But I'm doing them to also be healthy. And my girls are seeing me do these things to where I'm
Yes.
going to the gym and spending an hour, hour and a half at the gym while they're in the childcare there,
Yep.
working on me and
Same.
improving myself.
Love
And
it.
so they see
And
it,
they
they get
see it
it.
all. They see everything.
And so
They
then they're
see
like, oh, yeah,
everything.
my dad's taking care of himself. And so then later they'll be like, oh, I'm going to take care of myself because I saw
Yeah.
how important it was to him.
So true.
And it's just so important that you can't be the best partner, you can't be the best father, you can't be the best parent unless you're putting that time and that energy into yourself to get there because it's not just going to
100%
happen.
true. Well,
It's
it's
not
about
just going
being
to happen.
selfish. Being
It is.
selfish so you can to be selfish first is then the ultimate selflessness, right? If you can put yourself first, then you can become selfless.
And you're not really taking away anything. I feel like that's where it gets confused for people, especially for dads.
Mm.
It's like, well, that hour and a half I could be spending with them, every day. But it's like, hey, then you take that hour and a half, you put it into you. So then when you're there, you're more present, you're more energetic, you're
Mm-hmm.
calmer, you're in a better headspace,
100%.
you're more emotionally
Exactly what I was going to
available,
say.
you're more
Because I
loving,
thought
you're
the
more
same thing.
caring, all of it.
Yep. 100%. And I was there. I was like,
Yeah,
you think you're going to be there for that 1.5 hours, but you're not really there. Your mind's somewhere else, or you're still at work, or you're frustrated, or you're angry, or you got something going on that you're not really there. You may be physically there, but emotionally,
hmm
spiritually, you're not there at all. So you're right. That's exactly
no,
right. That's exactly right.
yeah, you're not there. You might think you're there, but you're not. You're not. You thought you checked it out the door. You thought you checked, work at the door, left it at work. You didn't. You brought it home. It's carrying over
No.
into your home life,
Yep.
And so that's so important. Realize it's for you, but through you, you're setting. You can set those goals that attach to
Correct.
your family, to your
Correct.
kids, to your partner.
Yep.
So,
And
all
you
right,
lead by example. You show the kids the fundamentals of how you do that, and they see all of that. And that's what's really, one of the kid things that I sort of teach my kids is, the two P's. They have to do their two P's in the morning. Whether they don't really do them all the time, but it's push-ups and pages. So there's some of the small fundamentals that I'm trying to teach the kids: push-ups and pages. So just a little bit of a workout, and I call it pages because it could be journaling, it could be reading, it could be something that's got to do with so they can understand and swallow that what needs to sort of happen. So that's just a small, easy way to palette it for the kids is push-ups and pages. So I ask them, did you do your P's today?
push-ups. So, pages, push-ups, and what's the third one?
No, that was it. Push-ups and pages. And actually, funny enough, my daughter
Oh.
decided to add peas in there as eating the right foods when I said, "Did you do your peas?" And she's like, "Well, we didn't eat our peas for dinner." So she wanted to add peas in there for food.
Hey, but that's awesome that she's thinking of that. She's thinking it at
Correct.
another level. She's like, okay, I did my physical, I did my mental and my emotional.
Yep.
Um, but I'm being conscious of what I'm eating because I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that's important
Correct.
to mom, seeing that's
And we
important to
we talk
dad.
a lot about that. We
Um,
talk a lot about the food that we eat. I teach the kids about having the right plate. I teach them about proteins and carbs and the fats, and I explain to them this is a protein, this is a carb, what those particular things do. So I explain that to them so they see that. And sometimes I make
Definitely.
sure that you know they don't really see me train because I do sometimes early in the morning when they're asleep and sometimes late at night when they're asleep. So I make a conscious effort
Mhm.
for them to see me come back sweating from the gym or, make an effort to read. I normally read when they're asleep. So I normally make an effort to read while they're around so they can see those things. Sometimes I don't have to, it's very hard to tell a kid what to do, as we all probably know that. But if they start to see it, eventually it'll be ingrained into them and they'll start to understand it. And when the time's right, it'll just happen naturally.
Exactly. They're gonna mimic it. They're gonna mimic the behavior.
Yeah,
All right, so
definitely.
let's go into here. So with your wife, she saw you at all these, you know, can almost say low points, and she was there, she was supportive.
Hmm.
Now on the other side of it and improved, what has that done for like your relationship together? What kind of things do you guys do to maintain that, healthy relationship, support each other. I don't know if your wife also trains or does a
Yeah,
lot of these same things too. I don't know if you guys do them together. She's like, no, you go do your own thing. I don't want anything to do with you.
bit
You're
of
gonna make me
both.
lift heavier than I want. Like you leave.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've realized is we me and my wife, we tried our best to constantly work on our relationship, and I don't want to sit here saying that we've got the perfect recipe. It's an evolution of trying, right? So,
Hmm.
first of all, yes, getting my wife, she does like to work out as well too. So I try to encourage her in that aspect to get out there and do her own workout. One thing that I'm trying to get better at is, like I said before, is in, with my mum putting all the emphasis and focus on the family, losing touch with herself. So something that I realized that I had to try to do with my wife, and especially being a man, being a husband, we are very goal orientated. And, most of the time, the mother is the housewife who will stay home and watch the kids. And us men, fathers, dads, we go out there and we're mainly the breadwinners. We go out and chase our dreams and chase our goals. And what I learned from my mother is that they get sort of, I wouldn't call it lost, but they get in that zone for their, until the kids are grown up, 15, 20 years old. They're just that mum and they forget about their dreams. They forget about who they are as a person, what they wanted to do when they were younger and their dreams. So something that I've tried to do, and it's definitely difficult, is try to talk to my wife about that and understand what her dreams are. What does she want to do when the kids are grown up, and try to bring her back and try to help her navigate towards that. And I've started to understand what she wants to do. I'd like to be able to help her, encourage her to pursue that now instead of waiting for, quote unquote, when the kids are gone or when the kids are older. So that's something that we definitely don't have locked down, but that's something that I've realized that I know that we can work on more. So for me, that's what I like to deliver, that message is, you know, if you could see your wife being stuck into that, they may not realize it right now, but they're going to probably pop their head up one day and be like, okay, well, my
What
kids,
now?
what now? Not that my kids don't need me, but your kids are going to get to a certain age where they're
They're not
taking
gonna need
care of
you as
themselves,
much.
they're driving, they're sort of their own person, and you're left with all this sort of time, and you've spent the last 20 years just being a mum and a wife, not just, but being a mum, being a wife, and you've dived into that. So I
Mhm.
try to recognize that. It's very tricky. But I know that's something that I want to do and work with my wife to for her to have her dreams and her goals and not just get stuck down in the family. So that's definitely something that I'll try to work on. And I think um just communication. Like we try to just, add things and take away things. Like, I think, we try to do, I don't necessarily call them date nights. I just think, is understanding the other person. For myself, I love, very touchy feely love. So I try to express that to my wife. I know my wife, she likes presents and
Mhm.
gifts. So, I make a bit of a conscious effort to have a bit of a list. And this was a tricky thing for me because, money's a little bit tricky sometimes, going to
Mhm.
buy your wife. And I found myself in a bit of a habit where I didn't buy her stuff because I just had that concept around putting money towards other things. And this was something that I noticed in myself that I had to change. So I went out and created this massive list all the way with things like a brand new house, a brand new Mercedes, some um I forget the name, some really expensive bags, all the way down to something as small as just a single rose. So now I make a conscious effort once every couple of weeks. I try to get her something small, whether it be, maybe just a new gym top or a pair of shoes. And then obviously as life goes on, I'm able to
Mhm.
buy those bigger gifts, right? So I've tried to
Yeah,
build
no,
that
definitely.
habit around just getting her stuff. So I think a couple of things like that. And I think one thing I found myself doing was I was so hard on myself. Like I always get really down on myself for not having the right answers. And man, this being a husband thing is hard. And man, like what the heck are women thinking? Like, what do they want? Like, I don't know. Like, come on. Like, I
Yeah.
was so hard at my, which I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, amen to that, right? I was very hard on myself and I get so beat up over it. And the same thing with being a parent and being a dad. I'm like, man, like 1 minute I'm kicking goals with the kids and I'm rocking and rolling. And then the next day it's like, what the heck? Where did I go wrong? And I get really down on that and thinking I'm no good as a dad or I'm no good as a husband or I'm a bad partner and oh, this is crap. And I really, realized, by talking to people that no one's got all the perfect answers and it's not going to be okay every single day. You're going to have your bumps and your bruises and you're going to have your ups and your downs and just know that, everyone's going through the same thing. I think we could get caught up a lot where we feel like we're the only one who fights with our wife or has a disagreement with our wife or, our kids are the only ones who are getting in trouble or they're not listening or they're the only ones talking back. And when you start to realize that this is life and everybody goes through it, I think that really relieves the pressure off yourself, and I
Mhm.
think that was something that I wouldn't necessarily call it suffered with, but something that really, got me down at times where I just like, I can't work this shit out, And then I just
Yeah.
said no. And then we progressed from there. So I think that's a good message to share is that, you're going to have ups and downs. You just got to keep working at it. And I don't like to say no one's got it figured out because, there are things that you can do, but I think it's going to comes in ups and downs.
Yes, it's
So
going to
yeah,
100%. And I love a couple of things you mentioned there, where you're supporting her dreams and you want her to continue to chase those,
yeah,
not just define herself by being a wife or a mother
yeah,
or the condition of her home and anything. Define herself by what she actually wants to define herself as. I think that's
correct.
super key. That's important.
Mm,
But then you also mentioned speaking your partner's love language, which we've talked about plenty of times on the show way back in the
yeah,
beginning. Because that's so important. Two people aren't always going to have the same love languages.
yeah,
But you mentioned something super important there, a conscious effort
hmm,
to, like, you made a whole freaking list
yeah,
of everything from a house to a Mercedes to a freaking chocolate bar,
yeah,
whatever. But it's that conscious effort to speak her love language because she's making the conscious effort to speak yours when you need
yeah.
it.
Very
There,
true.
and like you said, there is no perfect code. It's always going to be ups and downs, bumps and bruises. Every pair of partners argues one way or another.
Hmm.
Don't let it kill you. Don't let it kill your relationship. It happens to everyone.
Yep.
one argument. You have to be willing to work through things. That's the whole point. You have to be
Yeah.
willing to work through things. Obviously, if it gets to a point like it has for myself in my life, where you just couldn't work through those different
Yeah.
issues anymore, those
Yeah.
differences, you have to look at it real and split. But if there's the chance that you can, not just for the kids, but for yourself and for her or for your partner,
Yep.
do it. Make that
Hmm.
commitment to do those things. I think that's super important.
Definitely.
All right. So one of your things in your bio on Instagram is daily blueprinting.
Yes.
And I feel a lot of that comes with being intentional, being consistent, showing up. But take us through, like, when you're working with a new client, what that daily blueprinting looks like for
100%. So
someone brand new to it.
yeah, definitely. And this is what we spoke about just a little bit before with that what I realized with that workout, and that's where it all sort of, came down to. It all came down to myself trying so many different things right now. And, everyone's personalized blueprint is slightly sort of different to their own sort of scenarios. But, for me right now, that blueprint is the foundation of my day. It's like I said before, it's removing that negativity for me to be the best and highest version of myself. So on different days, it 100% always has a workout. Hands down, there is a workout involved in that. That is the fundamental of it, the workout. There's aspects of visualization. There's aspects of writing gratitude, meditation, reading, and getting the right nutrition in. So that's the core fundamentals of the morning blueprint. And then at night too, we also add in potentially some nightly reflection points,
Mhm.
where I've got a whole bunch of questions. I've got about 20 questions where, some I may only spend a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, get through 2 or 3 particular questions, whether it be goal related, whether it be value related, personal related, family, wife, kids, asking myself certain questions about who I was that day and who I want to be who I want to be tomorrow. So that blueprint is the fundamentals that we do on a daily basis, and it's ingrained with the right nutrition. It's ingrained with the workout, and it's ingrained with the discipline around that. Because once you stick to that discipline, and that's where that mindset sort of comes in, when you can keep that promise to yourself. Okay, when you set out, when you have a blueprint, when you have a process and a system that you can follow, and if you can stick to that, you keep the promise to yourself, then you build that confidence. Then from that confidence comes the discipline. And everything revolves around creating the highest, the best version of yourself. And that's what we do every single morning. Without a doubt, we don't miss it.
I love it. I love it. So the blueprint, obviously starts at the beginning of the day. It
Yep, with the
starts
wake
with
up.
whatever your foundation is. Like for me, obviously every day looks a little bit different, but I know, kind of what the outline's going to be for the day. I know what the blueprint's going to be. It's going to
Yep,
be, if I have my kids, it's going to be get the kids to school,
yep,
you know, and then work, and then, get through work, fit in the gym, things like that. My blueprint's definitely changed in the last few weeks because
yeah,
I don't have any school work to do, and I
uh-huh,
have more time. So now I'm trying to re-blueprint, refigure things out, gym and everything. But, in my morning, there are some things that ground me, waking up, taking a shower. One thing I do before I leave every day is I take my greens. Every
yep,
day for the last few weeks, I take my
yeah, nice,
greens and I make sure I, have my intermittent fasting timer going,
uh-huh,
you know, on its intervals and whatnot.
yep, love it.
Because it's just basic things that I know I can take those greens beginning of every single day. They're not delicious. They're very
All right.
nutritious.
Yep,
But I know if I can get through that, and that's how my day starts. I don't know. I already did
definitely,
something super freaking hard that I don't like doing, but
100%.
I know that I need to be doing. So it's just really, obviously, yours is the gym. For me, it's different.
Yeah.
It's gonna be different for everyone, but you have to find that one thing that starts your day, and you have to find those things that finish your day, and then you
Well,
kind
and
of
the
got to
reason
fill
and the
in
reason
everything
why
in
the gym
between.
as well too is because, that motion creates emotion. So
Yes.
that's where that real, and some of my clients actually say the same thing, is they're not a big fan of the gym. So we change it for them because we need to get them working. That's what I
Mhm.
think a real big thing is for me, is to get that heart rate up, because you work through that negative energy. You really elevate up that emotional, your emotional levels just keep working up. And doing that through a workout is so important. And, one of the things for me being a parent, and I also say this to my wife, is, that time before the kids wake up, the time before the kids wake up is so important for me. That's why I like to get this done early in the morning. So when the kids wake up, it's bang, because we know once the kids wake up, that's it. You're not on your
Yeah.
time anymore.
Mhm. No, 100%, and I've been there where I try to wake up before my kids in the morning and, I try to, take my shower and jump on my computer, maybe write something and, just get something flowing. So, no, I
Yeah.
definitely understand that, and the gym is a scary place. Like, I love going to the gym, um, but one thing I found is, like, I'll work through these things, I'll be on a bike, I'll get my heart rate up, I'll increase the resistance, I'll lift weights, I'll do these sets, and then I've been ending in the sauna for about 20,
Yes.
25 minutes.
Love the sauna.
And some days I'll do a cold plunge, not every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Love it.
just because I just end up not having the time to do it, or it's not
Yep.
built in, or, I don't really want to shower and then go from sauna to cold to
Yeah.
shower and whatnot. But anyways, it's like in that sauna, like sauna's hard. Like
Yeah.
it's not easy because you're in this hot room, it's dry, it's
Yeah.
hot, your heart rate's high,
Totally. Yeah.
you're sweating, you're thirsty. Like I don't take water with me into the sauna.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
It's
I
going to
try
make
to
you
push.
dehydrated. All that water's going to be sucked right out of you. So that
Oh, I
makes it a
know.
lot harder.
I
Yeah.
know. I hydrate after really
Yeah.
well. But I like to push my body while I'm in the sauna. My heart rate's high. I'm thirsty. It's hard, but I'm really use that time to meditate
Yes.
and to kind of come back down, like to refocus. Like okay. And one thing I do is I listen to worship music
Okay.
while I'm in the sauna because it just helps me focus. It just helps me find that like gratitude, helps me find that like feel that spirit and feel my mind just kind of be at ease and my spirit at ease, my body at ease,
Love it.
while my heart's like jumping at like 130
Yeah.
beats per minute. I'm thirsty. I'm sweating like a whole puddle at my feet and
And that's
whatnot.
when
But
you find at those points is when you're vibrating at that high frequency, when you sort
mhm,
of becoming into that flow state, right? When we're
exactly.
at that point of suffering and discomfort and pain, and we're, removing all that stuff from us. The same thing goes with like, hunger and just feeling a little bit hunger. Sometimes you can push past that. I'm hungry, I need to eat, is when you really start to learn the most about yourself. And you may find in those moments, in that high flow state is when all these answers will come to you. Your creative mind, your subconscious will start to come out, give you all these ideas, give you answers to problems when you're in that particular
Mhm,
state. So it's so true what you're saying.
exactly. And that's why I started doing intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
where not only just for my health, because I would find myself snacking late at night
Uh-huh.
and I would
Yep.
just feel awful, like going to bed and whatnot.
Totally.
Um, but like now it's like I'm forcing myself to do something else hard
Yeah.
and forcing myself to be on a regimen, to be on a schedule, to it's part of my blueprint
Yes.
kind of thing. So it just helps me get there. So it's going to be different for everyone,
100%. And a lot of people don't even know where to start. And that's the thing for me. Like a lot of the dads that I work with and even some of the mums, they just don't know where to start. They just
So
don't
where
know.
do you start? Where do you start with some of these people who just don't know where to start?
The first thing we do is obviously depending on whether they go to a gym, whether they work out at home. The very basic fundamentals is a workout schedule. So that's customized to the individual, right? Some people I have right now who go to the gym, so I give them a particular sort of workout routine. Some people do it at home, so I'll design it around them doing it at home. Some have no weights, some have some home weights. So whatever that person able to do, I design them a workout. So that's the
Okay.
first thing. Second thing we do is nutrition. So we look at their calories, we give them macros, we understand where they need to be, what their goals are. Most of the time, dads I'm working with just want to be able to drop a few kilos, lose a bit of, the gut or whatever it particularly it is. So we give them macros, we give them a nutrition plan, we help them understand the foods, give them that. So they're the first two main things. We start with that. And then from there, we go into practicing gratitude. We talk about their wake up time. And before this, I individually have a whole questionnaire because I want to understand them, what their
Mhm.
current habits are. They're drinking, they're eating, they're smoking. What are they currently doing? Because sometimes, we want to just sort of at the same time, too, we want to sort of, give them a lot, but I want to make sure, depending on where they're at, we don't just go bang straight away. So we've got to cut a lot. So it's not about what we add. It's also about what do we need to start removing before we can then add
Mhm.
other things. So, month by month, we will add a few more things depending on where they're at in their journey. But the core fundamentals is definitely going to be workout, nutrition, and they jump on calls with me every single week. And we talk about mindset and everything around that.
Makes sense. So it sounds like it starts small. It starts with exactly
Mm-hmm.
where they're at.
Where they're at.
And I feel like
That's
that's so
very
important
true. Yep.
just in life when you're talking to people, as you're going about life, as you're going
Hmm.
throughout, for single people out there, dating is you have to understand where you're at first.
Exactly right.
You have to understand where you want to go, but
Hmm.
it's also important having people around you that meet you where you're at.
Correct. And accountability. I think that's a big part of what people don't realize. A lot of the people I work with is, we don't have an issue right now with information. The information is out there. Whatever you probably want to do and achieve, you could probably Google it and find the answer to it right now. We have an
100%.
application and an accountability problem. So, a lot of the times is holding these guys accountable to keep their word to themselves, right? 99%, a lot of people won't keep the word to themselves, but they'll keep their word to somebody else. Okay. So if I could first make them keep their word to me and be accountable to me, and then slowly after time, as they believe in themselves, because at the moment when they generally, their confidence is pretty low because they've tried something, never stuck to it, so their confidence is a little bit low. So as we start to, they start to lose a few kilos, they start to stick to their plan, every single day they start to execute. One of the things I talk about is wake up and execute. Don't worry about the result.
Mhm.
Don't worry about the kilos we're trying to lose. We just focus on executing the blueprint every day. That's your job. Execute the blueprint. So once they start to string a few wins together, their confidence starts to build. And then eventually they will start to hold themselves accountable to the person in the mirror. And ultimately, that's what we want to build. We want to build that mindset where they look in the mirror and they know the answer. Everybody listening here right now knows the answer to the problem. They know where they're slacking. They know what they need to do. They know what they need to stop doing. Okay. And they know what they need to add in. And I think that's where it all starts with you don't need the answer. You know the answer. You need to take the action to dig deeper on that answer. So for me, I want to help them build their confidence so they can then hold themselves accountable. So they look in the mirror, they look at the man they've become, and they say, that is a man that I want my kids to see, my wife to be proud of. And I know he's done everything today. So when I put my head on the pillow at night, I know I've held myself accountable. Okay. And that's the core fundamentals of this. This is mindset. This is changing that mindset, that self-belief, that identity that people are attached to. Just to give you a quick story, my identity when I grew up was a party animal. I used to party and smoke and drink, and I was known as, a party. I had a nickname for a party. So when I started to be more serious and into the business side of things, that identity I was attached to, it was kept pulling me back. Those people I was tied to kept pulling me back. So I had to break free from that identity. A lot of the times, people that I work with, potentially if it's in the trade industry and the construction industry, their identity is, I'm meant to be overweight. I'm meant to be at the pub every afternoon. I'm meant to be smoking. I'm meant to be drinking. That is their identity. And that's the identity that I had. So a lot of the times is, having to break free from that current identity and stepping into the new identity. So a lot of the times is understanding who they want to be and understanding that their old identity is what's holding them back. So that's a big part of what I do working with the clients is breaking their old identity and stepping into that new identity.
I love it. I love it. No, that's super important because, you I feel like that's really important with dads. We talked about this with Noonan a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
where a lot of times when, uh, especially a dad jumps into the gym for the first time, gets back into it, they're trying to be like they were 10, 15, 20 years ago
Yeah.
in some cases. They're trying to
Mm-hmm.
move like they were, trying to lift like they used to. It's like you're not that guy anymore. You're
That's right.
not that guy anymore. And I've had to realize that. Like I'm only, late 20s, but even looking back, when I go on a baseball field and try to play baseball, it's like I'm
Uh-huh.
not that same guy anymore. I
Yep.
don't throw as hard. I'm not as good. I can't do the same motion because my body doesn't move like that anymore. I have to change things up. I have to meet myself where I'm at now and go forward from there. So
Yes.
with
So
that in
true.
mind, now when I go back out for baseball this spring, this summer, in the adult league, I know where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
I know how things feel naturally, and so I'm just gonna do what my body lets me do. I'm
Yep.
not gonna try to swing or pitch like I used to back then. I know all my fundamentals. I know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do them the way that my body can do them now,
Yeah.
and
For
that's gonna be
sure.
the best way it's gonna do it now. So I feel like that's so important
Yep.
is to meet yourself where you're at, to leave that old you behind,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can be this new you that you want to be. Like you
Correct.
said, someone that you're proud of seeing every day in the mirror,
Yep.
where you have that self belief, that self confidence, that self love, all those things wrapped into it. So
So true.
you got to wake up and execute that blueprint. I love that. I love that.
And that's what I get my
Uh,
client because we get so caught up in the result, right? We can get so caught up in the result. I'm like,
and you get disappointed and you lose it. You lose it
100%.
so fast.
And the only goal is to execute the blueprint. I just said that's
Yeah,
all you need to do. Wake up, execute the blueprint, and everything else will
everything else comes with
it'll
it.
come. It'll come. Once
Yeah,
you get to the end of the day, did you do your workout? Did you eat the food? Did you do the reflection, the gratitude? Did you read the book? Did those what you need? Did you do that? Yes. Great. Win. Go to bed. Do it tomorrow. Do it
exactly.
tomorrow.
No, and I feel
Do
that's
it
so
tomorrow.
important. Like I was a personal trainer back in college, and my college had this program called The Biggest Winner,
Uh-huh.
where people who knew they were overweight would sign up for this program, and there was different teams. It's kind of like The Biggest Loser, but it was a positive spin, The Biggest Winner, and whatnot, teams and whatnot. And I just saw so many people. I saw some people really run and own that program, have great results with it. And I saw other people who were just, and I was like 19, 20 at the time. I barely knew what I was doing being a personal trainer. I didn't know as much about like the mindset and whatnot. I was focused on the results for my clients and my
Yeah.
team, trying to win. Um, but looking back, it's like they they were some of the people that struggled with it and continue to struggle and never got any results on it is that they didn't have a healthy mind to
Mm-hmm.
go along with it.
Yep.
Part of having a healthy body is also having a healthy mind. If
Correct.
your mind's still cluttered, your mind's still clogged, your mind's still negative, and you're not working on your mindset and your emotional health as well, your mental and emotional health, your physical health isn't going to change.
So true.
It's basically you're gonna feel insane
Yep.
because you're expecting a different result, but you're changing one area instead of all three areas that need to work.
Yep.
They all tie together. That's the body.
Totally.
You
Couldn't
have to
agree
change
more.
the emotional, the mental, the physical, the
Yep.
spiritual,
It all goes hand in hand.
and your body's just going to be the byproduct of that mental, emotional, and that spiritual
Correct. And you
health
need to be
improvement.
congruent. I think one of the most important things is congruency between thought, word, and action. You can't be thinking one thing and then acting in a different way, or you can't be saying something and then thinking a different way. You can't be
Mhm.
thinking that I'm going to be a role model for my kids and you do things that behind their backs where if they actually seen what you were doing, you'd be disappointed that they seen that. So I think getting
Yeah,
congruent is very, very important. And, this is, something that I still work on every single day, right? Because sometimes life's not going to be perfect, but I think you have to recognize that. You need to be able to get congruent with that. And the best way to do that is to start with action. Always start with action. Action leads to everything, right? So sometimes, that action could be different for everybody. That action for somebody could be putting your shoes on, walking down the street, walking to the gym.
yeah.
That
It's that
action,
simple. It's
yeah,
that
it's that
simple.
simple. All the action could be, messaging that person to help you. Maybe you've been listening to them on a podcast and you're like, I connected with that person. I'm going to message him. I'm going to do that. Or connecting back with an old partner or some sort of action. And the follow up to that is, what do you need to do? You know. That's the thing. Deep down inside, we have all the answers. We don't need to go looking for the answers. Whatever it is you're avoiding right now is what you need to do the most. If you're avoiding putting your shoes on and going to the gym, that's what you need to do the most. If you're avoiding picking up that phone and calling somebody who you had a argument with the family, that's what you need to do. If you've been watching somebody and you're like, I like what they're vibing, you need to go connect with that person. Whatever it is right now, you listening right now, you know what it is that you need. So take this as a message right now to take action on what you already know you need to take action on.
Exactly. Enough said there. All
Yes.
right, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to being a dad. Let's bring it
Yes.
back to being a dad. I think we've coached the people. I think they know what they need to do. They know what they need to
They know
do.
what they need to do. They just need to do it.
We just need to do it. Heck, there's things that I need to do. There's she listens to this podcast, but so she knows. She knows. But there's things that I
Yep.
want to do, and not in that like do with her, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot. That's what I've been
Yep.
avoiding doing the most, but I need to do it. But
And there you go, right?
um,
Like without me telling you what the specific thing is, and everyone
I know
else
what I
would
need
be
to
knowing.
do. I
Yep.
know what I need to do, and it's not always something physical.
No.
You mentioned that it could be someone you had an argument with.
Mm-hmm.
There might be someone you need to forgive.
Exactly right.
Heck, it might be something spiritual. You might need to pick up that Bible and read that Bible,
Correct.
or go to
Yep.
church, or listen to some Jesus music, or whatever it might be. It could be something spiritual. It could be something mental, emotional.
Yep.
It's not always just physical.
That's exactly right.
Like we said,
Exactly right.
take that action, take that first step, start small.
Yes,
Start small
definitely.
with those little steps. But let's bring it back here. So through all of this, from hairdressing to construction to being a husband to being a father,
Huh.
from construction to being miserable, to taking this path through all the hardship,
Yep.
getting to where you are now, what has changed for you most personally as a father and as a husband? What has changed for you? Where have you seen that improvement with your kids and with your relationship?
Yeah, so I think, with my kids is one of the things I've realized is be honest with them. Like, especially my older kids, like they understand. Like,
They do.
you don't want to yell, you don't want to lose your temper, you don't want certain things to happen. You get frustrated, you get angry. We all lose our temper, whether we're going to scream, and it's going to be something silly. And one thing that I've made an effort once I've cooled down and calmed down, gone up to my daughter or my son, given them a hug, got down to their level and said, I apologize for what I did or for what I said, or, whatever it is, I apologize to them. And I let that be, and I didn't carry that into the next day. A lot of the times I wouldn't go and apologize to them. I would beat myself up, and I'd say to my wife, that's not the father I want to be. That's not who I want to be. And then I've forgot that you're not perfect. Life is not going to be perfect. You're going to have these times, especially with kids. Like, there's one's pulling here and this has got to change a nappy. And one kid's so excited about a drawing they did at school. And the other kid's like upset because she can't find her dancing outfit or something. So you're over here being all happy and then one's screaming here and so you got to not be. And I think those are the things, right? As in,
Yes.
whatever happened, it happened. Just go and tell them, I'm sorry, kiss them, leave that there. Don't be too hard on yourself and go in. And that was a big thing for me with the kids, is that right there.
I love it. I love it. It's just that taking that accountability for what you want
Yeah,
to do and what you want to be.
definitely. Yep. And
Yeah.
understanding
So
that for me, I looked at the person I wanted to be, and I constantly look at that. And, I'm done being hard on myself. If I didn't do something that was congruent with the values and the person I wanted to be, I let that go. And I just made a conscious effort to be better the next day.
for sure, for
Mm,
sure. No, I love it, and it's about that conscious effort. It's about being better the next day. It's about
yep,
letting it go,
definitely.
leaving it, leaving it on that day, and letting it go from there, and
You have to.
improving, being better the next day. You have to be better the
Yes.
next day. So, all right, man. Is there anything else that you want to leave with the listeners today? Anything else you want to say?
To be honest, I
Anything
think we've
else that's
shared a
on
lot
your
today.
mind there?
I think we've shared a lot. I think everything that I wanted to say to all the other fathers listening out there and all the other husbands and all the other men out there, I think we've delivered it through today's podcast, and like, Jay, like you and I had a chat, if people feel like they can't have a chat, I'm here to have a chat. You can grab me on Instagram, Daniel Simone Fit, where you can find me there. I'm happy to chat with people, always having conversations with
I'll
people.
link
So
your Instagram in the show doc here, so if
yeah,
anyone
awesome.
wants to there. And you can also chat with me.
Yeah,
I'm now streaming on Twitch. 3-4 times a week on Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, occasionally Sundays. Not tonight, obviously, but I'm over there on Twitch. There's these resources out there.
You're not
If you're
alone. That's the most important thing, right? You listening, whoever you are. This is me and us telling you. And if you're asking yourself, is he talking about me or they? Yes, we're talking
Yes,
about you.
100%,
You
yes.
are not alone. Okay, you have other fathers like myself and Jay, and a whole worldwide community. Like I'm from Australia, Jay's from America, and how we've connected. So you're not alone. People are there in the same position you are, who have been where you are, who are going through what you're going through, and have gotten through what you're going through. So you don't have to be alone. You can do it with people.
100%. All right, Daniel. Well, thanks for being on, man. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay.
Like I said, I'll link your Instagram in the show notes.
Awesome.
You can find Daniel on his Instagram, like I said, Daniel Simone Fit. You can find the Build Podcast in his Instagram bio or on anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you share this episode with a friend. If you have a mate that needs it, share it with them. Share it with them. Share it with someone that you care about. And until next week, guys, we'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
Hey, you, are you still here with me? Thank you so much for listening all the way to the very end. Definitely appreciate it. Don't forget to leave 5 stars, leave a comment, leave a review. Head over to YouTube, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias, even TikTok. And all of those links, plus every single deal that we have in affiliation, you can find in our link tree. Just by going to the show notes, clicking the link tree link, it really does help us just with likes, 5 stars, subscribes, all of that. It's a great way to support us, and it really helps us keep going. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Can't wait to be with you next week.